Hi, and welcome to our Lee Chaolan breakdown. This guide is brought to you by the newest member of TBS, Mujigen Zen. Take it away.
Thank you, Arya. Lee excels in controlling space and weaving in and out of the opponent's face while constantly poking them. It's in this state of frustration that retaliation is inevitable, and opportunities for a hard read leading into a launch are what Lee is designed to exploit. So let's take a look at his strengths.
His fast, versatile pokes can easily pester even the most patient of players. Granted that they're not amazing on block for the most part, but that works in his favor because Lee excels at stealing turns due to his high evasiveness. And that's exactly one of the threads that holds his game plan together, because high evasion and great pokes tie into his absurdly relentless counter-hit game. He has a myriad of tools that will launch impatient opponents from nearly every situation, making it extremely hard to know when to press against him. Lee also has access to amazing multi-layered space control options, both for keeping the life lead using keep out and for creating whiff situations, capitalizing on people who rush into him. And last but definitely not least, he's blessed with excellent punishment capability, namely due to his infamous Acid Rain and Acid Storm, as well as having what's probably one of the best 10 frame while standing punishes in the game. He has options for mostly every situation, which makes Lee amazingly consistent against people who like to take risks. This, combined with how damaging and adaptive his combos can be, definitely makes it so you'll want to keep it compact when playing against him.
While Lee does have a lot of strong points, he definitely has his fair share of weaknesses. For one, he is extremely susceptible to sidestep and sidewalk left. Most of his core tools whiff if the opponent times their movement correctly, making it so that enforcing his pokes and frame traps will take a lot of spatial and tendency awareness, since most of the moves that cover his weak side are more on the slower end of the spectrum. Lee also struggles to make comebacks, primarily due to the lack of power lows except for slide. This is exacerbated given the fact he is reliant on rocket heal into rage drive for big damage off of his best mix-up, usually resulting in the opponents being extra aware of his approach, especially in a crouched state, and commonly opting to practice a keep-out heavy playstyle when he is in rage. Due to the nature of his design, there is a notable lack of commanding moves that reward plus frames on block. That, combined with the fact he is a timing or read-based character, makes it so he favors a more defensive style of play, which can be quite harder to grasp and master.
To enforce a poke-heavy game, it's necessary to find ways to get up close and personal with your opponent, and Lee has a short but sweet selection of tools that allow him to approach from basically any range. Starting off with his left-right combo. This is a jailing high natural combo jab string that has a decent active frame window, meaning you can expect it to connect if people try to jab check you during it. It's particularly useful for covering a lot of ground due to its transition into Mist Step, which allows it to retain mostly every property, making it a good way to start your pressure game or scout out tendencies on block. If the left-right combo is amazing at covering distances, then combination Dry is good at setting up mind games up close. Just like the previous string, it's a high natural combo, and although it can be fairly linear, this one grants a whopping +6 on hit, which can be leveraged with a transition into Hitman stance. Use it to condition your opponent to respect your frame advantage on hit by sneaking in a down forward 1, and try taking information on what they like to do after blocking it, so you can make the most out of the Hitman stance conversion and possibly steal back your turn. Triple Fang is probably one of Lee's most versatile tools, as it lets him control space from around range 2 whilst limiting the opponent's own ability of getting in on you. By itself, it's not that useful in the approach department, but it really shines once you master its transitions, both into Hitman stance or the fake-out misstep. Going into Hitman on hit puts you at an extreme advantage of +10, allowing you to basically dictate the next turn freely, while cancelling into the step will net you less reward frame-wise, but allows you to cover a lot of distance towards the opponent. This move becomes particularly oppressive at the wall if you master the just frame version of the full string, granting you a clean wall splat and making it easily one of his go-to pressure tools in these situations. Keep in mind that whilst the first 2 hits are a natural combo, the last one can be ducked.
Rear cross punch is not especially great by itself. Rather, it complements every other tool mentioned before because it can link into misstep cancels, turning it into a thread that holds together your approach. Used sparingly, it can force your opponent into overextending and trying to sneak in some kind of check, which plays into the fact that this move is -1 on block if cancelled, resulting in a perfect frame trap opportunity for Lee. Be wary though, as it is extremely linear. One of the only few plus on block moves that Lee has access to is Waxing Crescent, and as such, it's important to make the most out of it. Since it comes out of a running animation, it can also be done instantly and perhaps for the better, because it's extremely prone to being stepped if you make it too telegraphed from a distance. In any case, on hit, this leads to a knockdown which guarantees a silver circle follow-up attempt that will hit depending on the way they choose to wake up. On block, it sets up a powerful conditioning game, resulting in a scary mix-up situation where your opponents either take chip damage, lose their turn, or get punished for having the wrong read. Deadly Edge is also known as the Mishima Killer, and for good reason. This forward advancing high launcher is famous for nullifying highs and even evading some mids, which makes it a perfect approach tool when playing against people with Magic Force or Electric-like moves. It tracks notoriously well to Lee's weak side, as well as being highly delayable. The only downside is that it recovers somewhat sluggishly and that it can be ducked if overused. Otherwise, feel free to throw it out at your own discretion.
When it comes to poking, Lee is blessed with some of the best moves in Tekken 7. It's also good to keep in mind that most of his pokes are multi-purpose and also serve other aspects of his game plan, like keep out or approach. Let's start off with the quintessential poking tool, his standard jab. This is a 10-frame momentum machine that leaves you at +8 on hit and +1 on block, meaning you can get a bit more comfortable and try to start checking with Lee's combination variations. Aside from the previously mentioned left-right combo, Lee also has access to the left-right mid-kick. Even though it's unsafe on block, it's a natural combo that ends in a highly delayable mid. Depending on how long you charge, this becomes increasingly safer and gains some tracking. This string is particularly good to snuff out opponents who want to contest, since the last hit leads to a full launch on counter hit. As an added bonus, it can also transition into Hitman stance, making it highly evasive and difficult to punish, and also creating a whiff situation to be capitalized on by an aware Lee player. We've discussed combination dry before, but as a testament to just how good Lee's 2 jab is, it sports 4 different extensions. 3 of them function as a rock-paper-scissors knowledge check mix-up. Combination dry being a pseudo-homing mid that's -12 on block, but launches on counter hits. Combination VR, which is a pretty reactable launch punishable low that grants a follow-up on counter hit. And combination Funf, the safe alternative that screws on counter hit but can be ducked and punished. They're not particularly threatening, but in general, dry is the best out of the 3 given the risk-reward ratio. The final and undoubtedly most important extension is right cross to Revolution Zwei. This is a counter-hit confirmable string that leads to insane damage and knocks down or wall splats if the conditions are favorable. While the second hit is a punishable mid, the threat of finishing the string always lurks, making it somewhat safe against flustered or conditioned opponents. Do keep in mind that the last hit is duckable, so you'll want to master counter-hit confirming this string.
The generic down forward one is Lee's main poking tool. It doesn't have any extensions besides leading into the 10-hit combo, which does have its uses as a round ender, but it has tremendous synergy with everything else at his disposal. Being -1 on block means the opponent is playing into your mind games, and at +5 on hit it pretty much guarantees that you can go for another one. This move sets up mostly every frame trap in Lee's arsenal, and it cannot be overstated just how important it is you make good use out of it. Down forward one also has pretty good range, and the added bonus of evading some jabs, making it even trickier to play around with and interrupt. Since it works as the glue that ties his poking game together, a simple flowchart might be helpful to showcase just how powerful it is. Most opponents either have a 10 frame high or a 13 frame mid as their fastest options available in neutral. After blocking a down forward one, fighting back with a high option will result in them getting launched by either Deadly Edge or Silver Low. While retaliating with the mid will get them launched by Magic 4, any other evasive option they might take will most likely get beaten out by another down forward one, which means contesting this move can really be a death sentence. Mist Kick is a slightly slower mid with great tracking. It's got phenomenal risk-reward ratio, as on hit it's +7, but it can either be hit confirmed into its follow-up for great damage, or cancelled into Hitman stance to create distance and enforce mind games. All around, it's one of his most versatile moves, albeit a bit slow to recover on whiff compared to some of his other mids. Nonetheless, it's an integral part of Lee's poking rotation and great at dissuading people from pressing too much.
Front Kick is functionally the same as Mist Kick, except it has slightly more range, comes out 1 frame faster, and recovers better on whiff. On the flip side, its rewards are also considerably worse, giving you less damage, less frame advantage on hit, and leaving you at -9 on block. It's good to note that it does create a lot more pushback when cancelled into Hitman stance, making it one of the best ways to transition, generate pushback, and create whiffs. So far, we've only talked about highs and mids, but if that were all there is to it, then it wouldn't be possible to open an opponent up. So it's time to take a look at Lee's core poking lows, starting off by the ones that allow him to steal back his turn due to having evasive properties, more specifically, high crushing. Silver Low is Lee's primary go-to low. It's very fast and crushes highs within the first few frames, which works well considering the fact that it's also a counter-hit launcher. Although it has good range, it can be sidestepped, but somewhat makes up for it with the option to cancel into Hitman stance. This is a recurring theme with Lee's moves. If they have shortcomings, then it most likely means that transitioning into a stance will be able to cover for those, whilst also creating its own set of new problems. Cancel or not though, it's always launch punishable, so don't get too predictable with it. Silver Low is good to chip away at your opponent's health and force crouch mix-up situations since it leaves you in a crouching state if you don't cancel it. Used wisely, this move can punish reckless or impatient opponents heavily and make them second guess every time they try to contest you.
His other high crushing low is the generic downback 4. It's insanely fast at 12 frames on startup and has decent range, although it isn't very rewarding by itself and can't really be cancelled into anything. It does leave Lee in a crouched state at -2 frames on hit, which can lead into an annoying turn stealing situation. After scouting your opponent's habits, you'll be in a similar position to enforce mind games using the frame trap we discussed earlier with down forward 1, resulting in Silver Tail or Deadly Edge, dealing with the high options and infinite kicks with the mid options, even trading with a 12 frame mid. Bump Kick is the first of his core poking lows that doesn't have evasive properties. It comes out in 20 frames, deals decent damage, and nets okay frame advantage on hit. This is probably his lowest risk, lowest reward low, and can be used to really frustrate your opponent as it's only -12 on block. Definitely great to use when people freeze up or hesitate to keep up your momentum. Grass Snake is an overclocked version of Bump Kick, having more damage and advantage at the cost of being much slower and slightly more punishable. On hit, it nets somewhere from +4 to an outstanding +6 frames of advantage if done at tip range. Using it smartly is definitely a good way to keep up your turn and leverage your pressure by going for a mix-up. As an added bonus, it also knocks down into guaranteed follow-ups on counter hits that can lead to a full combo at the wall. To round out the poking section, we have the Laser Edge and Shin to Head Kick series. Now, this is a bit of a weird set of moves since they are entirely reliant on mind games to work effectively. That being said, they can be deadly if used correctly. By itself, Shin Kick is -14 on hit. Yes, on hit. And -13 on block. The trade-off is that it has two highly delayable extensions that can catch people off guard. The infamous Laser Edge String, which can be parried at any point during the follow-ups, and the Shin to Head Kick series. The latter is where these moves' key strength stems from. We will talk about it and the Magic 4 series of extensions in the Keep Out section since they share the same properties, and hopefully you'll be able to understand it better. But for now, just keep in mind that on counter hits, Shin Kick guarantees the Spinning Hammer Kick follow-up. Use it sparsely to annoy your opponent and most importantly, to check how they react to it.
We've covered approach, how to make the most out of forward momentum, and how, even without a lot of plus frames to work with, Lee's poking is deceptively deadly. So now it's time to go over his exquisite space control tools. Lee's Magic 4 might just be his single best move. It's very fast, safe on block, advantageous on hit, and becomes notoriously hard to deal with given all its extensions. Its best property though is that it counter-hit launches, making it a low-risk, high-reward move that can be used to keep opponents away, steal their turn, or even just create distance. Every extension Magic 4 has can also be accessed via the Shin to Kick series as mentioned before, and that's the reason why those moves are trickier than they first seem. There's machine gun kicks, which add a very noticeable amount of pushback to the move whilst retaining the ability to counter-hit launch and adding increased tracking. And there's also the Spin Kick series, which is a mind game in itself, having highly delayable mid-extensions to deal with, actively deterring people from trying to punish it. Lee also has a generic down forward 2 that comes with decent recovery, but is somewhat linear. It can be used to discourage people from mashing a lot up close, or as a safe mid option that can launch if it clips the opponent moving. Overall, it doesn't have much to it. Throw it out there to control the mid-range, it's safe regardless. One thing to keep in mind is that it slightly tracks to Lee's weak side, making it a good option to beat sloppy sidesteps. Pulse Blast is another important tool for Lee, as it gives him some presence from longer ranges. It's technically -11 on block, but it can only be punished at the wall due to its pushback. Though, do be careful with just throwing it out, since it's very linear and very easy to punish on whiff. It rewards you with a chunky amount of damage on hit and a knockdown to reset the neutral, and at the wall this becomes his most reliable wall splatting mid option, though as mentioned, be wary against characters who can punish it.
Silver Heel is the second most important move on his arsenal, only getting beaten by Magic 4. It's a beast of a move that commands pretty much everything within range 2.5. It can mostly be thought about as Lee's Swiss Army knife. It can be used offensively or defensively, as a frame trap tool, or as keep out. It just excels at pretty much everything. Coming out in 20 frames and being able to transition into Hitman stance would already be great properties considering it's a mid counter hit launcher with insane range. But it also forces crouch on hit and knocks down crouchers themselves, which means however you land this move, you'll always be massively rewarded. Lee Cutter might be one of the most underrated moves Lee has access to. It is a bit sluggish, but it serves the purpose of being a frame trap and covering lateral movement as it's a safe homing high. It recovers very slowly, so you don't really want to whiff it too much, though it can transition into Hitman just like Silver Heel, and suddenly become a lot more evasive. It's also good to note that it's one of the few scarce moves that leave Lee at plus frames, so that you can keep enforcing your game plan. Depending on whether or not you go into Hitman stance, it functions as a launcher or a knockdown. In conjunction with the previous move, Pirouette Punch functions as his lateral movement check, except this one is a mid that launches on counter hit. Lee always recovers in a crouched state, so it's a great tool to set up crouch mix-ups, and it becomes notoriously better if you choose to transition into Hitman stance, as the frame properties change quite a bit. This is definitely Lee's go-to homing move, and should be utilized as keep out since it has deceptively good range. To finish off this section, there are some moves we talked about previously that should be brought back up considering how well they enforce space control. Them being front kick, due to the space it creates between you and your opponent. Missed kick, being a juiced up slower version of front kick with potentially higher rewards. Deadly edge, as it works wonders against characters that use highs to keep out. And the triple fang string, as it's simply too multi-purpose not to be considered a spacing tool as well.
Some tools are just too specific to be bundled into a cohesive group, but they're nonetheless still vital to successfully optimizing your strategy. The first move that needs to be mentioned is Gut Polisher. This is relatively slow but has high evasion properties during the latter parts of the animation. Gut Polisher has great tracking, good range, is safe on block, and boasts excellent properties on hit. While it can be a bit awkward to use, it's generally most effective against jab-happy opponents. This is also a counter-hit launcher, though the pickup is pretty hard and range-dependent. As with most of Lee's tricky pickups though, a dash blazing kick is the easy mode option for guaranteed follow-up damage. Deadly Arc can be somewhat used as a poking tool due to how fast it is, but the real utility of this comes from how much you can delay the second hit. It works especially well against people who want to mash their way out of your pressure, only to end up getting counter hit for big damage. Although this isn't a natural combo, it forces crouch on hit, which is great considering it's also safe on block. The mind games from this string can also be expanded further with the cancel into Hitman stance, which makes it much less minus on block.
Feather Landing has a very slow startup animation, but it makes up for it by rewarding you with amazing frame advantage and by forcing the opponent to crouch. It also notably leaves Lee in a crouching state, meaning it sets up full crouch options really well. Use it once in a blue moon to keep the momentum on your side and extend your turn. Wheel of Fate is only basically used in Oki situations, but it is especially great to force people off the ground, particularly at the wall. It's an easier alternative to Blazing Kick. Mist Flash can be quite the menace at the wall. This 20 frame fast mid power crush serves as a wall bounce with quite good tracking and range. It's rather unsafe at minus 15 frames on block, but it becomes somewhat invaluable to keep your opponents honest and to stop them from getting off the wall easily. Finally, the infamous Mist Trap. It can be best described as a just frame high snake edge that instead of launching just knocks down. Its particular strength is that it's an unblockable move, therefore it can be used on conditioned passive opponents, especially at the wall or in Oki situations. Otherwise, it becomes immensely risky to go for due to it being reactable and duckable.
Throughout this guide, we've brought up a lot of situations where you can apply Lee's crouch mix-up, so now let's explore it in more detail. There are primarily two mix-ups you can enforce from full crouch. One is low risk, low reward, and lets you scout out tendencies to help you make more educated decisions for when you do finally want to go for something bigger. This is encapsulated in While Standing 4 and Silver Tail. The former is a very fast, safe mid that can go into Hitman stance. It works similarly to its standing counterpart, front kick, but boasts better frame data on hit and block. Silvertail could also be considered a key poking tool, even if it is a bit telegraphed by the crouching state. This is a fast low that knocks down on counter hit for chunky follow-ups. Silvertail is also a high crush from start to end, and can be transitioned into Hitman, making it go down from -14 frames on block to -12. As you can see, both of these options are very fast, safe, and have further inbuilt mind games due to the Hitman stance transitions. This means that not only do you get free chip damage, you can also potentially keep your turn by exploiting your stance.
Regarding the bigger risk and bigger reward mix-up options, we have the Rocket and Twister heals as well as Slide. Slide is pretty much Lee's only power low. It knocks the opponent down from very far away and switches sides. On Wake Up, you can choose between a guaranteed Wake Up 3 or tapping up to rise quicker than your opponent and unlock another mix-up situation. It is a very chunky low with great rewards, but it's floatable into a full combo. To effectively make your opponent guess, you'll mix the Slide up with one of the other two strings. Rocket Heal is the preferred choice as it leads into a highly damaging mini combo and gives a high wall splat. It also notably becomes his most damaging launcher when in rage, enhancing the crouch mix-up risk-reward factor by a lot. Being a mid, its weakness is that it's -13 on block. To counteract that, you can opt for Twister Heal, which is a safe mid-high string. The problem is that the last hit can be ducked, so you should keep that in mind, particularly since the reward is considerably lower with this option. There can be a lot more moving parts to Lee's crouching mix-up game, especially if you add Pulse Blast to the equation, but these are the essential bits you should try to take away for now. When it comes to punishing, Lee's answer to everything up until -14 frames should be Acid Rain. But since Lee's jab range is pretty short, you'll have to go for different options on a move-by-move basis. So, here are his other punishment tools. Left-right mid-kick at 10 frames. At 11 frames, there's 4-3 for damage and 4-4 for frame advantage. Aggressive 1-2 at 13 frames. Double Signal or Mistwolf combination at 14 frames. Hop Kick, Down Forward 2 or Acid Storm at 15 frames. Rage Drive at 16 frames. And Pulse Blast for big pushback moves.
For Lee's punishment from crouch, we have infinite kicks at 10 frames, which is exceptionally good. Wonderful combo at 13 frames. Both Rocket and Twister Heal at 14 frames. The Hop Kick or Hop Knee at 15 frames. And the Flip Kick for those big stagger lows at 18 frames.
In regards to punishing whips, you'll have a vast array of options depending on distance and your position relative to a wall. Triple Fang has great range and wall splats. Acid Storm will be the go-to whiff punish since it has good range as well and launches. Double Signal for when you don't want to overcommit since it is hit confirmable. Blazing Kick for really big whiffs. And Rage Drive for very specific situations. Lee's kit is very complete and versatile when it comes to punishment, so much so that there are cases in which certain moves lead into mix-ups or stance transitions, further pushing your advantage on what are already very damaging and rewarding situations. Both Double Signal and Triple Fang force the opponent into taking the knockdown by holding back. Otherwise, they risk taking additional damage in the form of a Blazing Kick or Wheel of Fate follow-up. Twister Heal sends the opponent spinning into a daze and granting plus 18 frames on hit, effectively guaranteeing a mix-up afterwards. Wonderful Combo can transition into Hitman stance. And while Infinite Kicks can also transition into Hitman, it most notoriously has a built-in mix-up string, which can be very high risk, but also be enough to close out a round.
Stances are an integral part of Lee's game plan. They offer extra mobility, evasion, a myriad of defensive and offensive options, as well as the inherent extra mental baggage the opponent has to deal with, never knowing if a transition is coming or if it's just a fake out. Contrary to popular belief, Lee can be quite accessible to initially get into as a character. By sticking to a simple yet effective set of core tools and strategies, you might find mild success with him. But what really distinguishes a novice from a specialist is how well they understand Lee's stance flow and its multi-layered applications. Starting off with misstep. There are mainly two ways of accessing this stance. You either do it manually by inputting forward and neutral, or you can transition into it from a specific set of moves using that same forward-neutral input. The most common moves that allow you to get into misstep are left-right combo, rear cross punch, triple fang if cancelled on the second hit, Lee somersault, stinging rush, and his rage drive. Misstep itself allows you to cover great distance forward whilst evading highs, since Lee keeps a low profile during this animation. Additionally, you can cancel the step itself with any other form of movement or move, as long as they don't share inputs with the misstep stance specifics. The following moves are unique to misstep. There's Inverted Axle, a forward advancing mid-launcher that's -12 to -13 on block. Lee Sliding, which is a much worse version of his regular slide, albeit sporting a bit more range. And Misstep Sway, which acts as its own stance in a way, but is only really a backward misstep, functioning on the same principles as regular misstep, giving you the freedom to cancel it with any form of movement or opting to utilize its only unique move, the Spinning Axe Kick. This can be delayed quite a bit during the sway animation. That, coupled with its high crushing and counter-hit launching properties, make this low quite an underrated move that should be incorporated occasionally into your game plan. Be careful about overdoing it though, as it can be quite telegraphed. One of the most crucial aspects of misstep and sway is the ability to get access to while standing moves instantly. This is mandatory if you want to optimize Lee's combo game, and the way it works is actually pretty intuitive once you get the hang of it. To perform an instant while standing move, you'll want to input a manual misstep by pressing forward and releasing into neutral, followed by tapping back into another neutral to get access into misstep sway. Lee is in a crouching state whilst shifting from misstep to misstep sway, so this is where you'll want to time your final input. Taking Rocket Heel as our example, the full sequence should look like this: forward neutral, back neutral, cancel with 2-3. This can naturally be done with any kind of misstep transition, not just by doing it manually, which we'll see later in the combo section.
While misstep is quite the technical stance, Hitman could be seen as more of a defensive, hard-read extension to some of Lee's key moves. Entering Hitman stance follows the same logic as misstep. You're able to either manually get into it by pressing 3+4, or by inputting it after certain moves, the most common being left-right mid-kick, combination dry, triple fang, missed kick, front kick, pirouette punch, silver heel, Lee cutter, deadly arc, silver low, silver tail, and waxing crescent. The most straightforward and surface level reward for using Hitman stance is the overall increase in frame advantage of moves both on block and hit, as well as granting them slightly more tracking. The underlying strength of this stance comes from its unique moves, which can vary wildly from high risk, high reward to low risk, low reward, as well as its adaptability and momentum shift capabilities. Though by far its most underappreciated but valuable characteristic is how much pushback it adds to Lee's space control options and how far back he evades during the transition. This right here is arguably one of the most impactful modifiers, as suddenly getting a move blocked turns into somewhat of a reward for Lee. During HMS, you won't be able to block or move forward and backwards as usual. To do that, you'll have to cancel it, with the safest way being via a crouch cancel, though getting hit or using most of the stance unique moves will also break you away from it. That being said, HMS will grant you access to HMS into Mist Step by tapping forward into neutral, HMS Sidestep by tapping up or down respectively, Scatter Blow, a 19 frame fast high crushing mid launcher with great range, which serves as his most consistent high damage option from this stance. Shin Slicer, his other high crush variant, this one being barely seeable and death on block. It rewards you with a knockdown on hit and a full combo on counter hit, great for a very hard read. Scatter Kick, which is arguably one of his best moves from Hitman. This is an extremely fast high homing power crush that leads into a knockdown and is safe on block. You'll see this often used for frame traps or for baiting out whiff punishes. Poison Touch, a strong, safe, long-range mid poking tool that covers a lot of lateral space. Great for checking your opponent after transitioning from a lot of plus frames. Silver Slash, a very flashy but generally uninteresting mid wall bounce that's quite slow but safe. It has its uses near the wall and it also evades lows. Silver Circle, one of his most niche tools from Hitman stance. It's a safe, very slow mid that knocks down or counter hits for a full combo. Its main use is for Oki purposes or as a guaranteed follow-up in some situations. And finally, the Freaker Jab series. Freaker Jab by itself functions as a quick high check with modest properties. It allows you to remain in Hitman stance after doing it and can be linked into itself a few times, albeit not a natural combo. The catch here is that it can turn into excellent combo with its extension, which is a mid. Now this mid is safe and can counter hit launch, which absolutely deters the opponent from contesting Freaker Jab. Not only that, excellent combo can be cancelled back into Hitman stance, with the added benefit of having amazing pushback, feeding into all the options we discussed previously. This is a perfect example of just how high the skill ceiling for this stance is. The more adept you become at exploiting these nuances, the better your game plan will flow, making you a truly excellent fighter.
Lee's punch parry works wonders against opponents that like to overuse jabs and generic down forward ones. Not surprisingly, it's also very effective against aggressive Steve players. The parry will deflect any move that's considered a punch, be it high or mid. Additionally, it can be used from crouch or hitman stance, which is a neat bonus. After successfully parrying, Lee will flamboyantly jump over the opponent and force them into a back-turn state. From here, a lot of options become available to you. The safest and most consistent follow-up is guaranteed in pretty much any situation, save for character-specific interactions, like with Yoshimitsu. The 4 follow-up knocks down and even serves as a wall splat if you manage to punch parry with your back against the wall. If you're willing to take a bigger risk, then the whole situation can quickly shift into a complex mind game with sizably more reward given a correct read. After being back-turned, the opponent has roughly 4 different choices to make. They can hold back, which allows them to block standing, hold down back, allowing them to block crouching, press 1 to do a generic turnaround standing jab, or press down back 1 to do a generic turnaround crouching jab. Both standing options can be beat by left-right combo to Revolution's Y, netting you a lot more damage than the standard follow-up as well as a knockdown. Both crouching options can be beat by Mercury Drive, which coincidentally also serves as a back-turn launcher, in this case netting you tremendous reward from a punch parry read. These 2 options do entail their respective risks. Given it's a mix-up, the wrong guess will result in some minor punishment. Still, this is quite situational. and with some practice you can even learn to confirm into either of them, significantly reducing their risk.
In this section, we are going to take a look at how combo pathing with Lee works. That way you'll be able to adapt, fine-tune, and optimize your routes according to your own needs and execution. Before heading onto the combo structure, let's first take a look at his guaranteed follow-ups and mini-combos. Rocket Heal and Counter Hit Wheel of Fate lead into a Pulse Blast or Rage Drive into a full combo. Counter Hit Grass Snake and Silvertail, as well as his command throw, can lead into Feather Landing. Dash Wheel of Fate or Dash Blazing Kick. Counter Hit Silvertail into Hitman will lead into Silver Circle. Acid Rain, Shin Slicer, Silver Circle, and Silver Heal on crouched opponents will lead into either Dash Blazing Kick or Dash Wheel of Fate. Silver Heal into Hitman stance on crouched opponents and Lee Cutter into Hitman stance lead into a Silver Circle. Slide can be followed up with a Wake Up 3. Combination Fia's last hit on counter leads into a guaranteed Acid Rain or left-right mid kick. Spinning Hammer Kick's last hit will lead into Silver Low or Wheel of Fate. Lastly, Silver Bullet guarantees Pulse Blast or, if transitioned into Hitman stance, Scatter Blow. As its standard practice in Tekken 7, Lee's combo pathing usually obeys a straightforward set of rules. We begin by dissecting the entire combo into smaller segments, each with their own function. The launcher comes first. This sends your opponent into a juggled state. After connecting a launcher, you'll want to do a damaging filler. Depending on what the previous sequence is, you'll either add extra filler or refrain from doing so. Following the filler, you'll want to extend your combo using a screw move. And the last segment consists in a combo ender tailored to your specific requirements. Before we go into explaining routes for every launcher, here are some suggestions for the screw and ender segments, so that you can mix and match according to your preference and dexterity, given the combos we'll be presenting are fairly optimized. Generally, the most common screw options are Super High Combination, which is easy to perform, decently damaging, but quite limiting when it comes to combo pathing, and it's also a tad bit inconsistent. There's also Deadly Cyclone, amazingly versatile and reliable, quick on recovery and extremely easy to do. And Instant Twister Heal. It's the hardest option but ultimately the most damaging and optimal in most cases. As for the enders, you'll mostly be looking at Waxing Crescent, which is usually used right after a screw and for Oki and damage at the expense of wall carry, Mercury Drive, which is not versatile at all and only works on certain shorter combo paths, while still managing to be a good carry and damage option. Double Signal, the staple all-around best option in pretty much any situation. Aggressive 1-2 for shorter distances and still good damage. Rocket Heal for very situational paths. And Gut Polisher for the soft, slow float, perfect for consistency near a wall. Let me also quickly preface that when it comes to linking rear cross punch, or what it's most commonly known for, doing back two loops, you'll have primarily two options. Either opt for the simpler path and instead of looping them just fit one rear cross punch before the screw and another one after, or loop 3 of them consecutively before the screw. With all that in mind, let's get into what could be considered the bread and butter combos for Lee. Lee's potential damage is at its highest when a wall is nearby, and for that to be realized, you'll have to be aware of which combos will seal the deal after carrying your opponent into a corner. The most reliable and consistent wall combo is down 4 into Somersault. It has a nice low hitbox and is amazing to salvage combos from enormous distances, making it a preferred choice for run-ins. Down forward 1 or back 2, followed by Deadly Arc into Silver Low is his staple wall combo for damage, though Silver Low can be blocked by big characters by simply holding back on Wake Up. In this instance, you can use Mist Kick instead. 4-3 Delay 4 is a great option for Okizeme, though it can be quite finicky to pull off. For Gigas, Jack and Marduk, you can go for a specific combo in back 2, 2 into the full Lizard Edge string. For comboing after a hard wall stun into a resplat, you can backdash and mist kick followed by any previous wall combo of your choosing, or sidestep right 4-3-4 into another wall combo of your choosing. From a wall bounce, you can do 4-3-4 into a wall combo from far to medium distance, or instantly splat with a 4 for a short distance into wall combo of your choice. And finally, for a high wall splat, you can go for Lee Somersault into Deadly Arc and Silver Low.
To empower your wall game when the opponent is backed up into a corner, here are some exemplary Okizeme setups and situations. Substituting Silver Low at the end of your staple wall combo for Wheel of Fate will net you better Oki and damage. This option beats every wake up scenario except for Quick Stand, which means the opponent can only block and punish this if they hold up. Complementing this, if they do catch on and start waking up using Quick Stand, you can add Pulse Blast or a shortened Acid Storm to the mix. This will cover people who tap up, but will lose to all other options. If you manage to connect Wheel of Fate, you can go for a front kick attempt. From here, two things can happen. Either the opponent doesn't tech roll, and this leads to a resplat into wall combo, potentially looping the whole sequence, or the opponent does tech roll and you whiff front kick. Though in this particular scenario, whiffing front kick leaves you at +2 frames of advantage, which means that you can counter hit confirm right cross to Revolution's Y if they tech roll and wake up into buttons, again getting them wall splatted. This is a very scary mind game. Mastering it will confuse opponents and make them hesitant, opening them up to full crouch mix-ups. Speaking of full crouch mix-ups, if you hold up after connecting a slide at the wall, you can try to hit confirm double signal. If the opponent wakes up holding back, you'll get a free wall splat. Otherwise, nothing is lost, as long as you do really hit confirm the string. Another really cheeky interaction is that after connecting Punch Parry into the 4 follow-up and getting a wall splat, Rage Art will also connect as a combo.
I hope you enjoyed learning about Lee and that you're now convinced to give him a shot. Stay safe and have fun.
Hey, thanks so much for watching, and to our excellent patrons for supporting this channel. These guides all take a lot of love, effort, and time to put together. A simple $1 a month can help us make more of them. You'll also get cool bonuses like early access, exclusive updates, and so on. Take care everyone, and remember to be excellent to each other.